Millionaire comes home. Early sees stepmom hitting his daughter. His reaction shocks everyone. The millionaire, Richard, had just finished a grueling day at his office, the kind of day where every meeting and decision seemed heavier than the last, and he thought he could finally relax once he got home. But as he drove through the long driveway of his mansion, an uneasy feeling gnawed at him. Something in the air felt wrong, almost electric, like the house itself was holding its breath. And when he opened the front door quietly, hoping to surprise his family, he immediately sensed the tension. The usual calm of the living room, with its elegant furniture and soft lighting, was shattered by muffled cries and raised voices echoing through the hall. Richard's heart sank as he caught sight of his young daughter, Emily, standing frozen in the corner, tears streaming down her face, while his stepmother, Victoria, loomed over her with a raised hand and an expression twisted with anger and frustration. He stopped in his tracks, unable to move, unable to breathe for a moment, as the shock of what he was witnessing completely overwhelmed him. Emily's small frame trembled as she tried to shield herself, and the sound of her sobs pierced Richard's chest like a knife. He had heard rumors about Victoria's harsh and manipulative ways, but he had never imagined it would come to this, that she would actually lay a hand on his daughter. Every second felt drawn out, his mind racing with disbelief, fear, and an unstoppable surge of anger that threatened to consume him. His fists clenched instinctively as he took a step forward, his voice breaking the tense silence as he shouted her name, and Victoria froze instantly, caught red-handed, her eyes wide. With surprise and panic, unable to continue her assault, Emily ran toward him without hesitation, throwing her arms around his legs as if he were the only shield between her and the danger she had feared for weeks. Richard bent down, embracing her tightly, feeling the weight of her fear and the innocence that had been threatened by someone she was supposed to trust. "It's okay, Emily. You're safe now," he whispered, his voice firm yet gentle, a stark contrast to the rage building inside him toward Victoria, who now struggled to find words, her authority crumbling in the face of his presence. He could feel every emotion coursing through the room, the fear, the betrayal, the relief, the shock, and he realized in that moment that being a parent wasn't just about providing, it was about protecting at all costs. Without raising his hand, without yelling, he asserted his power and control, letting Victoria know, clearly and undeniably, that her actions had consequences, and that Emily would never be subjected to harm under his roof again. As he held his daughter close, he felt a mixture of sorrow for what she had endured and a profound determination to ensure that nothing like this would ever happen again, knowing that today he had not just returned home early, he had returned as a protector, a guardian, and a father willing to shock everyone around him with the depth of his love and the lengths he would go to keep his family safe. Richard's heart pounded in his chest as he sprinted across the marble hallway, his mind consumed by disbelief and fury, each step fueled by the urgent need to protect his daughter from the shocking sight he had just witnessed. Victoria, frozen mid-motion, looked up in sudden realization that her cruel act had been caught, her hand still lingering in, the air as if suspended by guilt itself. Emily, small and trembling, didn't hesitate for a second. She ran into her father's arms, burying her face against his chest, her tears soaking through his crisp shirt as she gasped, "Daddy, she hit me." The words struck Richard like a thunderbolt, igniting a storm of anger and disbelief that surged through every fiber of his being. He stared at Victoria, pale with rage, the kind of cold, controlled fury that demanded immediate accountability, and the room seemed to shrink around them, every shadow and every piece of expensive furniture suddenly irrelevant in the face of the moment's intensity. Victoria's lips quivered as she attempted to stammer out an excuse, claiming that Emily had been disobedient, that she had provoked her. But Richard wasn't just hearing her words. He was seeing through them, recognizing the hollow nature of her justifications and the cruelty masked behind feigned authority. He took a slow, deliberate breath, his voice cutting through the tension like steel as he told her firmly that such behavior was completely unacceptable, that no child in his household would ever endure such treatment again, and that there would be serious consequences for crossing a line that should never have been approached. The house, usually filled with polite conversation and the quiet hum of daily life, fell utterly silent, broken only by Emily's soft, shaky sobs as she clung to her father, her small body trembling from fear, but also beginning to feel the first flicker of relief in days. For the first time, Victoria realized that her intimidation tactics, her constant efforts to manipulate and control, had failed utterly in the presence of Richard's unwavering authority and his protective love. Every instinct she had relied upon to dominate the household now crumbled under the weight of his gaze, and even as she tried to regain composure, a palpable tension hung in the air, heavy with shame, fear, and the sudden understanding that she had underestimated the bond between a father and his daughter. Richard's eyes never left hers, his posture firm and commanding, sending an unspoken message that from this moment forward, Emily's safety and dignity would be defended without hesitation, and any further attempts at cruelty would meet immediate and unwavering resistance. In that charged moment, the power dynamics of the house shifted irrevocably, and while Emily trembled in her father's embrace, a sense of security began to wash over her, the kind of comfort only a parent's decisive protection can provide, leaving Victoria silent, cornered, and fully aware that she could no longer wield fear within these walls. Richard stood in the grand living room, his mind racing, yet his demeanor calm, the kind of calm that carried the weight of authority and undeniable resolve, a calm that made it clear to everyone present that he was in full control of the situation. Victoria, who had moments ago been so confident in her ability to dominate and intimidate, now found herself frozen, staring at him with wide eyes, realizing that everything she had relied on to assert power had collapsed in an instant. Richard looked directly at her, his voice steady but firm as he told her she was no longer welcome in the house, the words cutting through the air like a sharp blade, leaving no room for argument, no space for denial. He explained in a tone that was measured yet unyielding that he would take all necessary legal measures to ensure Emily's safety, that no action from Victoria or anyone like her would ever threaten his daughter again, and that this household would be a place of protection and love, not fear and abuse. The expression on Victoria's face shifted from shock to disbelief, then to a faint flicker of panic as she realized she had underestimated Richard, that her attempts to control and manipulate were futile against the unwavering force of a father, who would stop at nothing to protect his child. Emily, still trembling from the ordeal, instinctively clung to her father, her small hands gripping him tightly as though holding on to the only anchor in a stormy sea, and Richard held her close, letting her feel the warmth, security, and unshakable love that only a parent can provide. He whispered reassurances in her ear, soft words that contrasted with the firmness in his stance toward Victoria, letting Emily know without a doubt that she was safe, valued, and cherished, and that the fear that had haunted her for weeks was finally over. The atmosphere in the room was heavy with tension, yet beneath it lay a sense of relief, the kind that comes when justice and protection are decisively enforced, when cruelty is confronted not with panic or retaliation, but with unwavering clarity and authority. Victoria, unable to muster a defense or an excuse, stood silently, her presence now a shadow of what it had been moments earlier, her power dissolved by Richard's composed yet shocking response. Every detail of the room, from the polished floors to the expensive furniture, seemed irrelevant in the face of this confrontation, overshadowed by the emotional weight of a father's commitment to his child. Richard's actions weren't just about punishing Victoria. They were about setting a precedent, about showing Emily that she would always have a shield, that love and protection could overpower fear and cruelty, and that the bond between a parent and child was stronger than any scheme, manipulation, or intimidation. In that moment, The house transformed from a place of tension and hidden danger into a sanctuary, a place where Emily could finally breathe freely, where her father's decisive and composed action had restored safety, dignity, and trust, leaving Victoria speechless and powerless before the undeniable force of parental love. The aftermath of that shocking day settled over the mansion like a heavy yet cleansing weight, and though the initial tension still lingered in the air, a profound sense of relief began to take root, especially within Emily, who, for the first time in weeks, felt the overwhelming comfort of safety and unconditional love. Word of what had happened spread quickly among the household staff and extended family, whispers of disbelief and admiration filling the halls as everyone processed not only Victoria's cruel behavior, but also Richard's calm, composed, and unexpectedly firm response, which had left a lasting impression on everyone who witnessed it. The staff, who had long feared Victoria's temper, now saw a different dynamic, one where authority was exercised not through intimidation or fear, but through unwavering moral clarity and protective strength, and it gave them hope that the EU household could finally return to a peaceful routine. Emily, still clutching her favorite doll, followed her father from room to room, listening as he spoke gently, explaining that she had nothing to fear, that he would always protect her, and that her feelings and well-being mattered more than anything else in the world. Richard spent hours talking with her, answering her trembling questions, reassuring her with calm words and patient gestures, showing her that the love between a parent and child was an unbreakable shield, and that no one, no matter how bold or manipulative, could ever threaten her again. The mansion, once filled with quiet tension, began to regain its warmth, its elegance no longer overshadowed by fear, but now reflecting a restored sense of security and order, a place where Emily could play, laugh, and simply be a child without worry. Even the family, who had long tolerated Victoria's influence, could not hide their astonishment at the way Richard had handled the situation, combining authority, composure, and empathy in a way that commanded respect and admiration simultaneously, proving that true strength was measured not in anger or revenge, but in decisive, thoughtful action that protected the innocent. Victoria, confronted with the full consequence of her actions and seeing that her presence was no longer tolerated, eventually left the mansion, her departure silent yet final, leaving behind an empty echo of the power she once wielded and a lesson that cruelty and manipulation have limits when faced with genuine love and unwavering protection. The story of that day, of Richard's calm yet shocking response and the way he ensured his daughter's safety, became a lasting memory for everyone in the household. A story of parental devotion that would be told and remembered for years, not as gossip or scandal, but as a powerful testament to the lengths a father would go to defend his child, a lesson in justice, courage, and the irreplaceable bond of family, leaving Emily with the assurance that her home was finally a safe sanctuary, and that her father's love was a force no one could ever challenge or diminish.